Welcome to episode 1 of Phillips Watches Off the Record, a show featuring collectible watches and the people responsible for sourcing them and putting them at auction. My name is Arthur Touchot, and today I'm joined by the senior consultant of Phillips in association with Bax & Rousseau, Aurel Bax. Hi, Aurel.
Hi, Arthur.
And the head of watches for continental Europe and the Middle East, Alex Godby. Hi, Alex.
Hey, Arthur. Hi, everybody.
Today, we were going to talk about the highlights of the Geneva Watch Auction 11. However, we have just announced that we would be postponing that sale due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we thought that this was a good opportunity to first extend our best wishes to the collecting community. We hope that everyone is safe and healthy. And second, we wanted to answer the many questions that we've received on the back end of that announcement. Aurel, you've said that the health and safety of the watches team and our friends and collectors whom we usually see at this time of year was your top priority.
You're absolutely right, Arthur. At this moment of the year, we would be engaging with the community. We would start holding events around the globe, show the highlights of our Hong Kong and Geneva auction, and this season it's all very different. So I think it's an approach to keep in touch, talk watches the way we would do it during a reception in New York, in London, in Hong Kong. Still continue to share our passion. I think love doesn't go away, even though the circumstances are definitely very serious. And for sure, I will not be able to renounce to the pleasure of thinking, reading watches, talking watches in the coming days and weeks.
This isn't the first time that you have seen an auction season rocked by worldwide events. Even though this is unprecedented, still developing, and we are yet to measure the full impact of the virus's spread. Can you remember other difficult times in your career and how the watch market fared during those events?
If I think back to my earliest years, back in 2001, I remember we were closing a catalogue in September 2001, 9/11. We were cataloguing watches in the office, and the days, the weeks afterwards were unprecedented. The world hasn't seen anything like it. And that auction that we were preparing, it was a November auction in Geneva, on that very day, and I believe from memory it was November the 12th, we were about to start the auction. Maybe it was 2 p.m. in the afternoon. As I was walking up on the rostrum, some friends from the trade, collectors, stopped me and said, Aurel, you have to cancel the auction. I didn't know why they were saying that. And as it happened, very tragically, there was a plane crash that day. The aircraft crashed in Queens. There were casualties. And we had to delay the auction, not as now for an unknown amount of days or weeks or even months. But what was interesting is the same afternoon, once that all the people in the room were able to reach their loved ones at home, and it was becoming clear it was an accident, it wasn't a terror attack, the auction was amazing. In fact, that auction, I remember, we sold for a new world record, the unique reference 1591 by Patek Philippe that was originally owned by Marechal Tito. So that was 2001. Then, of course, we remember Lehman and Bernie Madoff. In December 2008, we had an auction in New York. It was too short notice to cancel. There was no, immediate threat to the population. It was dramatic from a economic point of view. And there was SARS. There were multiple events, and here we are today. So it's another crisis, and we will definitely look forward to hopefully soon going back to normality and indulge in our passion.
We thought that it was important to reach out to the community of collectors today and explain the decision of postponing the sale. We're taking precautions. We're sitting far apart, and we only have 2 people filming with us today, so we are under the limit that has been set by the Canton of Geneva. I wonder if we can quickly film the team just to show our viewers.
You mean you want me to use my mobile phone and just do a
Please.
a room shot? I'm happy to do that. Well, as I'm not a tech guy, I will try. So, well, let me start with you. So, hold on, I have to go to video mode. So here we have Arthur. I would think it's about 6 feet. We have Alex. Then you see a bit of a mess in the office. Then we have the Watches TV crew wearing their masks. No documents lying around. The window is open for some fresh air circulation, and the rest is material here in the room. So, happy to share this video with you.
Thank you, Owen. Thank you very much. We've just spoken about the reasons why we have decided to postpone the Geneva Watch Auction 11. A lot of questions that we've received have been regarding the economic impact of this pandemic and whether or not the value of the pieces, in your estimation, will have changed between mid-May, which is when we were supposed to hold the auction, and whenever we do, which at this time, we are still unsure when we will be hosting the sale.
I wished I had a crystal ball to tell you today what in May, in June, or beyond that the price level will be for fine collector's watches. One mistake I definitely won't do is simply say, well, if the watch market survived crisis 1, crisis 2, crisis 3, it will also survive the next one. That's, of course, a very dangerous mistake to avoid. Having said this, I believe there are several observations that lead me to conclude we should definitely not be pessimistic and definitely not panic. First of all, people do not buy watches as an asset class where there is no emotion, but it's purely financially driven. There's so much love and so much passion that collectors put into their hobby that it won't go away because of a virus. We may not be able to travel and meet, but this appetite, this thirst will remain, and therefore I think the buyers will continue wanting to buy, and the sellers will probably do what many people advise now in the stock market, literally sit it out. Can they sit it out? Well, that's the important question. And my observation is, when I look at the buyers lists for the last 10 or 20 years, I still haven't seen a pension fund buying vintage watches or limited editions of contemporary watches, rare watches. I don't think our collectors are leveraged. And that means that there isn't pressure to sell off their collections at these times. My feeling is that if I was going to call XYZ gentleman or lady collector and say, oh, look, the stock market is 25% down, I'll give you 25% less for your watch, he will say, thank you, but no thank you, I'll keep it, because I don't have to sell. So this is a huge advantage, that it was not possible to go to your bank in the last few years and say, can I please have $1 million borrowed? I'm going to buy watches with that, thankfully. So I think we're not seeing much third-party financing and leveraging in this market. What could happen instead is that if I was to call today a collector and say, fair enough, I'll give you the reserve price that you want, that he says, let me first see how the next auction goes. And that means we will probably see fewer good watches on the market, because there is potentially a lack of seller's confidence. Now, I said earlier before, 2 months after 9/11, a new world record, 3 million francs back in 2001 was an amazing amount of money, unprecedented. So my fear is rather that it will be more difficult for collectors, but also the ones in between, the dealers or auction houses, to secure great watches, as there's little pressure to part, and that we will have to accept, due to that shortage, potentially the same prices or potentially even for the greatest watches, to pay a premium to motivate sellers. I'll go further, and you know that I'm a university dropout, so don't take my macroeconomic comments as carved in stone. When I look at all the money that governments pledge these days, and when I think back 2008, how much money since then has been put in, well, money has become less valuable, and tangible assets or certain currencies or certain commodities, like gold, for example, or palladium, good heavens, I should have bought palladium instead of other things,
Watches.
have, well, I do it for love, have probably outperformed in recent times. So I'm not concerned at all. I'm more concerned, how can I put together a November auction when people are not yet confident that their watches will achieve appropriate prices in their view.
Alex, the office here in Geneva closes just as the catalogue is being finalized. It's a shame because the catalogue is a fabulous catalogue, one of the best that we've ever put together. I wonder if you are able to share any reasons why the collecting community should remain optimistic and looking forward to the Geneva Watch Auction 11.
You know, preparing a catalogue is like preparing a feast. You start with the amuse-bouche, the starters, the main dish, dessert, the wine. Everything fits in. Everything should have balance. Nothing should be overpowering. And this catalogue, the Geneva Auction 11 catalogue, which hopefully will be sent sooner than later to our collectors, has amazing balance. From entry level for watches for budding collectors to the collectors who have everything, there's something in there for everybody. It is most probably the catalogue that, and maybe Aurel, you can confirm or not, that has the most fresh to the market, never seen before watches. So basically, whoever buys, the collector who buys these watches at our auction will be just a second owner. I don't know if you know the catalog and you have huge experience, so.
I completely agree with what Alex said, and it's, by the way, beautiful, your comparison with the feast. You forgot the cheese, though, if I may say,
As a Frenchman,
and the brandy afterwards. But let's be serious. What I've seen in the last few years is, no matter if the auction was a 10, 20, or even $30 million auction, that the seasoned collector community often said, great Patek Philippe, great Rolex, but that one was in 2008 in that auction, and that one was in 2012 in that auction. It still makes them in the art world fresh to the market, meaning not just like yesterday it was shopped around, but we couldn't surprise the market. And this season, and I must extend a huge compliment to Alex and the team of specialists, because for some reason they were finding week after week original owner property watches that were for 70 years in the same apartment in Paris, in Italy, Rolex chronographs, Patek chronographs, perpetual calendars from the original owners. It's really remarkable. Also the independence. I'm sure you're going to talk soon about a pair of interesting independents that the world has never seen before. So I agree with Alex. It's a catalog where you flip the page, Omegas, IWCs, and say, wow, I've never seen this before. And that makes me very happy with this sort of, instead of bringing up déjà vus, you bring something that literally was jamais vu.
Right. And without giving too much away, we did film a special video with those two watches that you just mentioned. That's already been edited and we can publish it when we want. So I'm sure that we'll be sharing it with the collecting community very soon and during the stay-at-home period for everyone. So we will now start working from home for the coming weeks. And that means spending more time with our personal watches. We are lucky that we get to come to work and we have an amazing, diverse selection of historical and beautiful pieces to work with day after day. But I'm curious, this is a lighter question, I guess. If you had to spend several weeks with a single watch on your wrist, which one would it be, and why do you think you wouldn't get bored of it?
It's funny because we had this conversation this morning with Ohel, and this is a question I've been asking myself for the past 30-something years. And to be honest, I still don't have the answer. I don't know, because it depends on the period. Some watches, I love them for 3 months, and then I put them away for a year or two, and then they come back.
I'm not going to let you get out of this question. I know that it's a tough question.
Okay,
I would like to know, if you had to choose one,
Okay,
which
so
one would it be?
I'll answer your question, but not completely, because it won't be just one watch. And I'm really sorry. If it has to be, let's say, a vintage watch, my Grail vintage watch, and for decades now, has been a Patek 2499, second series, in pink gold. I mean, let's go all the way.
How humble.
Let's go all the way. So that would be my definite confinement watch. I would love. I wouldn't stop looking at that watch. In terms of modern and independence, you both know how much I love independence. I think it would need to be something kind of quirky, but very well made and historically relevant. And it would probably be a Vianney Halter Antiqua Perpetual Calendar.
So both perpetual calendars, you were ready to spend a lot of time at home.
Exactly. And then I would like to give you a third response, which just, would probably be a Zenith El Primero Phillips Special Edition. Just because it was so much fun designing it with Ohel and the team at Zenith, and it's the first watch I ever participated in doing anything in. So just would be kind of like a personal gratification kind of watch.
Cool. Ohel, same question to you.
I know there are some blogs who have very proactively started a discussion on, well, is it possible to be the one watch guy? For me, I can definitely answer no way. As much as I can never be the one food guy, I think the beauty is to have Monday sushi, Tuesday pizza, Wednesday a steak, Thursday you do a quick detox before the weekend with a salad, and then you go and go and go. And with watches, it's very similar. I'm not going as dramatic and say, oh, how can you choose from your children your preferred child? Not possible. A watch for a longer period of time is a combination between a rational and emotional selection process. So if I go, for example, against my will, a week to the Maldives with my wife, who just loves that kind of super chilled holiday, one of the big challenges to me is, how can I survive with one watch only such a period of time on an island that is just 20 minutes walk around? But as I go to a beach resort, there are rational considerations. Waterproof, maybe a date. Now, who needs a date in the Maldives? Well, I need to know the date. Is it going with my outfit? Is it going with the environment, etc., etc.? Now that I'm potentially staying at home for a longer period of time, it isn't so much the sturdiness and robustness of a watch. Then it becomes much more emotional. Which watch will not bore me after a week? And therefore, the design, the complexity of the dial, maybe when you turn it around, the movement, become more important. So, to me, I've been always wondering, why are there moments that I'm so passionate about a watch? Is it because it's just new on the wrist, and therefore, well, often you say the new is the better? Or is it a proven classic that for years and years and years, maybe as Alex described, there's a come and go phase, but you always go back to it because it's an evergreen. You can always listen to the Beatles. You can always look at a 911 Porsche or at a Hermes handbag. There are these undestroyable designs that will never be super fashionable, like trendy, but they will always pass the test of time and your eye can never get enough of it. So I guess for the coming days, and I'm wearing it today, is my Laurent Ferrier. My in many ways, of course it's mine, but that Laurent Ferrier and myself designed together. It's a reinterpretation of something like a late 1930s sector dial, totally no-nonsense design, very legible and very comfortable to wear. Now, does it mean that I'm into independence? It could equally be a classic vintage Rolex. I think something very clean and timeless again. It could be a Datejust, it could be a day date. That they never strike you as le dernier cri, but they always stand the test of time, and they always please you with their clean proportions. And especially, at home, it's a comfortable watch if you need to wear one. So there's the vintage aspect. Am I only vintage and independence? No, I could also go modern and always go back to my 5711 Nautilus that I thankfully bought when there were not yet waiting lists. Which makes me think, what are we soon seeing more easily available? 5711s at the Paddock boutiques around the world, or toilet paper? I really can't tell you, but that's a discussion a colleague of mine had a few days ago. So I would probably have a combination of three: an independent, a vintage, and a contemporary watch.
So both of you went with several answers. Look, I really appreciate it. I know how tough it is. We've spoken about this many times before under different circumstances, of course. So thank you so much for sharing a couple of your picks. While most of our time during the cataloging process is spent in the office, some of the most important work takes place out of it. And I'm thinking specifically about business getting, sourcing watches, meeting clients. And so, of course, as we've mentioned, we will be following the guidelines and staying at home for the next few weeks. But I'm curious if you have any career highlights that have taken place outside of the conventional workplace.
I'm happy to.
Alex wants a minute to think about his.
Exactly.
He has some, but he needs just a moment.
In those 25 years that I've been on the road for several auction houses, I can definitely confirm I've been facing some real sort of adventure type business trips. One of the most scary, fascinating, and then of course with a beautiful happy end stories is when I received a phone call one day on my mobile that was put through from my office. I was on the road, and this echo that you hear when somebody is in a public phone booth. And so I said, what's your name? And he said, I'm not going to give you my name. Where are you calling from? Well, I'm in Sicily, but I'm not calling you from home. I'm calling you from a public phone. So I want to remain anonymous. And he described what he had. And that was definitely catalog cover lot quality. And it was a one-owner family watch. We agreed that I would visit them, and Sicily, not just since we watched The Godfather, we know is an interesting place. Even though I must say it was my first trip to Sicily, and I changed my idea from some sort of a Corleone Godfather-esque image to one of the most beautiful places with the most kind, generous people. But that trip, that was my first trip to Sicily, I was making travel arrangements. I flew to Sicily and didn't know the name of the person, didn't know where I would meet them. All they said is, we will check when you land and we will give you instructions.
It's like the beginning of an interesting thriller.
Yeah, it was. And as I come out where the hall is, where friends and families wait for their loved ones arriving, my mobile phone rings. I answer the phone and they say, Mr. Bax? I said, yes. We can see that you have safely arrived. And I said, yes, and where are you? Not yet. Okay, so where do we meet? We first need to make sure that you are who you say you are. We have your number that we know is yours, but we want to make sure that the man we spotted is you. Raise your left arm. And I do that. Put down your briefcase. I do that. Now walk to the newspaper stands and pretend you would be buying a Corriere della Sera. And after a while they said, yes, we were able to identify you. So now you walk to the parking lot and there is a car waiting for you. And literally like in a sort of thriller, they said, we will now take you to a place, a secret place. You have to close your eyes and not look where we're going. And at that point I said, okay, if they wanted to kill me, they could kill me anywhere else. I don't think they make me fly from Geneva to Sicily to stab me or to shoot me. And we drove literally for like half an hour through beautiful bumpy country roads. I say beautiful because I kind of sneaked left and right where I was, so thinking I'm clever, okay. And we ended up in the countryside in a, I wouldn't say barn, but just a level above. And then they explained, sorry for those circumstances, but you have to understand that we need to protect ourselves and we cannot be seen with a watch specialist from a reputable auction house because that could lead eventually others to us, and that would be the end of our watch. The watch sold, the watch made a world record.
You haven't mentioned what the watch was yet.
Well, I have to keep some secrets, professional secrets. It was close to 2 million francs, the hammer price. And in the meantime, I got to know the whole family, the mother, the father, the children. And for many years afterwards, we were in contact and they would send us their good wishes for the holiday seasons. They even said that thanks to that extraordinary result, they were able to send both kids to study in university. I think at one point at Christmas they called and said that they lit candles for us and had a mass read for us and the team and the family. So what turned out, what started as a close to life-threatening experience turned out into one of the most beautiful human encounters that I've ever had in this industry.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that story. Alex, do you have any other...
That bar is very high now.
I feel like you should have gone first. I'm not going to go at all.
No, I seriously don't have any story, that could actually be the plot of a film. But as Aurel was saying, a lot of the people I've met have turned out to be amazing human experiences. People I didn't know the morning were out drinking schnapps until 4 o'clock in the morning the next day just because we bonded and started talking watches and then just felt something going to each other. I think one of the most dangerous moments I had was I was going to Paris to see a very important watch. I wasn't going to say as usual, but everything was on strike. So
Paris isn't that bad.
I used to live there. And the only way to get to town was to hire a motorcycle. And the guy thought he was Mad Max. It was raining, and he thought he had to, I don't know, he thought I was, it was life-threatening or something. He tried to get me in town within 25 minutes. Just to let you know, by car, it's over an hour and a half.
Oh, I know.
I got off that motorcycle, I was trembling. I had to sit down. The client was already like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, give me 10 minutes, please. But
hard to do evaluation after that.
With the watches in the Geneva auction, so so that was a good moment. But yeah, nothing as exciting as ours, though.
I guess the point is that we have an unconventional job. And in fact, some of the most interesting pieces we also just receive over email or by WhatsApp or over Instagram. And I'm sure that we will continue to receive some great watches that way during the next few weeks.
And allows us to meet great people.
The thing is with our industry, clearly we don't need to see every consignor and travel to see every watch, especially when we have existing relationship with collectors. When we speak the same language in terms of condition, originality, completeness of a watch, a lot can be done by email, by all different modern communication tools. when you are looking at a vintage watch where the degree of patina, a scratch, the degree of polishing, the depth of a hallmark is crucial to 10, 20, 50% more or less of the value of the watch, still today we and the watch and us have to get together at one point. Now it can happen at a Phillips office, or if the client cannot travel, especially internationally, there are security concerns, then we travel to the clients. So it will never go away, the traveling, but of course, as you say, we can do a lot also during these days when we work from our home office with the notebooks and the mobile phones.
Exactly. You've just mentioned that people won't be traveling, and this has been true for clients in Asia for a while now. So I'm just wondering if you have any book or movie recommendations for those who will be applying stay-at-home policies for watch enthusiasts during this time. And we've just recently sold a watch that was worn by a famous actor in Apocalypse Now, Marlon Brando's GMT, of course. Any other movies and books that you think pertain specifically to that audience?
In terms of books, there's two really interesting books where a watch is the central figure. One is called The Watchmaker of Filigree Street. I forget the name, but you can Google the name of the writer, but you can...
We'll put it in the description of the video.
You can Google it. It's in London, late 19th century. The character comes home, finds a pocket watch on his pillow, and that pocket watch saves his life a few months later. And he tries to track down the watchmaker, and he finds him as this old Japanese watchmaker in a tiny street, Filigree Street. Really interesting, a bit mysterious. In the same vein, you have a grand complication. Once again, I forget who wrote it. It's a librarian who's setting up a cabinet of curiosities for a rich client, and it leads him to research the Breguet Marie Antoinette, which at the time when the book was written was gone missing. But if we're going into something very more contemporary in terms of what's happening, if we're about confinement or self-quarantine, there's a book on house arrest called, and I think you've read it, it's called A Gentleman in Moscow by Amy Towles. Amor Towles. Amazingly well written. I mean, it's a delight to read. It's about a Russian prince in 1917, 1918 who lives in a hotel, and he's condemned to house arrest by the Bolshevik government. And it's the 50 or 60 years of his life in that hotel. Amazing.
Well, for the coming weeks, we at home have a plan. We're going to every day clean a cupboard. We're going to bring a lot of things in order. But one of the plans we unanimously voted for last night is we're going to watch a number of classic James Bond
That's
movies.
what I was going to do.
I'm sorry, Arthur.
No. I'm glad we're going to be doing the same thing. We can take notes and compare at the end.
There is so much with watches, of course. I think there's, in most movies, a watch plays a role. There are the watches like the Big Crown Submariner that actually don't do anything, that haven't been prepared to help James Bond out in difficult situations. So that's already a treat. But then, of course, later in the movies, when you start having Submariners with spinning bezels, a watch that we sold successfully a few years ago, all the way to the latest films with GPS tracker and everything, there's always a watch in there. Yeah. As a spare time petrol head, I will also enjoy, of course, the car scenes, the cool cars that he had throughout his career. I think the dialogues are still fun, even if you have seen them a couple of times already. With a glass of wine after dinner, I think that will be one of the sort of regularities in the coming weeks.
So that's it for episode 1 of Phillips Watches Off the Record. I want to thank my colleagues, Alex Goodby and Aurel Bax, for sitting with me today. To be honest, we're not exactly sure when we'll be able to sit once again around this table, but we will be back, hopefully soon. And in the meantime, we'll be exploring ways of staying close to you and connected to you through social media and through our website. We have a few exciting things that we've been working on that we can publish whether or not we're in the office. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon. Stay healthy.